sounds good. I guess go ahead and you want to start the recording. Okay. Well, welcome to our first Graduate Student Essentials workshop of this semester. And thank you for coming out to learn a little bit more about GIS. My name is Bruce Godfrey, and I'm the Geographic Information Systems librarian here at the University of Idaho. And this presentation for the next hour or so is designed to give you a look at some of the resources that are available to you as graduate students. They're available to undergraduates and faculty and the like. But hopefully, it's pretty broad brush. I'm not going to go too deep into any one piece of software, a little more into some of the Esri software, but hopefully give you an idea of what's available to you and where to seek assistance if you need it throughout your graduate research and/or coursework. So it looked like in the registrations, there were about, half the people who weren't familiar with GIS at all and half who had some knowledge maybe as an undergrad or other places. In the room, how many folks have used GIS before in some capacity? Any of y'all, you have one here? And you have? Okay, so we're about half and half. Online, how many folks have used GIS before? Just in the chat, maybe type a yes if you used it before. Any of the software, either desktop or software as a service. How many did you get, roughly?
One person said they have used ArcGIS. One person said yes, a little. Another person said yes. One person said not much.
Okay, so I think we're split probably pretty half and half. So we'll try to thread the needle and hopefully give the folks who haven't used it a look into how it might be useful for their research, and the folks who have, hopefully maybe touch on some resources that you might not be aware of that are available to you. So I'm going to cover just fundamentals, a couple slides on that, so we're all on basically the same page, and then talk a little bit about the software. And then talk about some of the resources that are available to you in person and virtual that may be helpful as you proceed forward. And then we'll jump on and look at ArcGIS online for a little bit, and folks are certainly welcome to sign in if you haven't been in there, and look about some of its functionality and what might be useful to you since we have access to that resource. So real basics, one slide here on just some terminology. GIS is Geographic Information Systems, and it's really a framework to gather and analyze and manage geospatial data, right? And it's based in geography, so we're all location-based. It gives you the ability to create and manage and analyze data, visualize it in different ways. So it's some of the applications are pretty inclusive. You can also document the data that you have in standardized ways. One of its advantages against tabular data, right, is you can perform spatial analysis or look at relationships based on location. And that can be a pretty powerful thing to do. And I think as most of us are familiar, it's integrated into all of our lives, whether we're aware of it or not, through your mobile device or other applications that you may access in a variety of different situations. But in GIS, this idea, you'll hear the term layers used, all the time, and it's really this vertical integration of these things based on spatial location, right? So we can take, a variety of layers and stack them one on top of another, and we can perform analysis on individual ones by themselves or in concert with other layers we might have. That's a pretty powerful thing to do for a location, but you'll hear that term layers all the time in GIS. If you're not familiar with it, that's one key terminology to focus in on. in terms of GIS, just one slide on data models, and there's really two primary ones. Um, if you're going to collect or use data, and it's helpful to understand what those are. So vector data are one of the primary data models, and that's either going to be a point line or polygon. So if you're going to capture data for research you're doing, and uh, it's the type of data that would benefit from using the vector data model. If you have point locations of observations, for example, you might capture them that way. If you have linear features, I don't know, maybe a fence line or something of that, uh, something along those lines, capture it as a line or a linear feature, and then you can capture polygons, areas, uh, city boundaries, counties, anything of that nature. So those are all vector types of data, points, lines, and polygons you'll become familiar with if you use GIS. The other primary data model is a raster data model, and that captures a lot of continuous data over large areas like elevation data, very often are captured in a raster data model. So you have a big grid, like a big checkerboard. Every cell, they could be different sizes, but every cell has data within it. And for example, with elevation, maybe it's got that elevation value. Or it could be gridded climate data so that you have temperature data across a broad area and you're interpolating it from observations and point locations. So those are your two primary data models. Vector being points, lines, polygons, raster being a big checkerboard with values inside every cell. And you can use both of those within your GIS and overlay them. They just use a different approach to how they store the data in there and organize it. Let's talk just a minute about data file formats. If you're downloading data, in terms of vector stuff, shape files, very popular. It is has the ability to be opened in, open source data or proprietary data. There's other formats that are available, GeoJSON. There's proprietary ones, Esri file geodatabases. Some will play more easily with some types of software than others, but there are lots of vector data formats out there. Shapefiles are one popular one. Rasters, GeoTIFFs are very popular. You can get different formats of raster data. JPEG 2000 is another one, or you might see NetCDF if you use climate data. That's popular too. And you can also bring tabular data into a GIS and that ability, a comma separated values file or Excel file or something like that. Very popular way to capture that. One distinction to make is, as things over the past couple of decades have transitioned to take advantage of the internet, you can just stream data too, in a lot of cases, if it's available out there from a data provider. You don't have to download GIS data, for every layer potentially. So there are web service formats where we attach to a data set in some location and we stream the features over. We're not actually downloading it, we're attaching to a vector service that streams the features over, right? In terms of formats, we have these different web service formats, web feature services. If you've used open source GIS like QGIS, you'll get to know WFS and some of these other acronyms like WCS and WMS, which are web coverage services, web feature services, web map services. They're popular under the Open Geospatial Consortium. So these streaming services are available out there from a number of providers, and many are making data available that way, in addition or as opposed to allowing data to be downloaded. But you may have a combination of both. So most of them you'll be able to use between the different softwares. Some of them may take more work than others. Um, Sometimes to do analysis, you might want the data local and, not have to process across the web. So be thinking about that as you move forward. In terms of uses, I think everybody here probably has an idea of what they might be able to use it to, but we certainly see it every day through your phones or other places, like tracking wildfire and forest management, uh, capturing the location of trees and their size and their species and that type of thing. And if you're doing demographic or market analysis or business type applications, you can certainly do that. Or studying wildlife in this example, where maybe in an area in red, you're more likely to see a certain species than you are in an area of blue or yellow there. So there's a lot of uses for it out there. And I'm sure probably everybody within this uh, workshop has an idea of how they might want to use it too. So that all my fundamental slides real quick to kind of get everybody, I think, hopefully kind of on the same page. Does anybody have questions before I go on to kind of the software side of things? Anything on those basics before we move on? Anybody online, feel free to type anything in the chat. Are y'all good? That's good. Okay. Well, let's talk a little software then. On the library's webpage, we do have a GIS software page where we make available a number of the Esri products, which is a proprietary vendor that we have a site license with, and some of the open source. And if you're looking at the open source, the desktop software, QGIS is pretty popular. It's really floated to the top. On the proprietary side, higher education in Idaho, so not just the U of I, but all the higher education institutions are under the same site license for Esri products. And we have access to many of their software packages out there. Almost everything on the education side is pretty broad. Um, there, there's a lot of them right now. Some of them you might not have any use for. Some of them you might be just interested in poking around, even if you don't need it for research, but we'll take a look and kind of step through some of those. And there's many out there, from using on your phone to your desktop or laptop computer, and give you a lot of options for either collecting data or analyzing it or visualizing it or sharing your story. So in terms of the software, if you looked at two popular ones like Esri's or QGIS, if you go back and get that shapefile format that we talked about on one of the previous slides, you can open that in either application, right? The interface is going to look different, but the functionality that's in there is going to be pretty similar. You have the ability to stack layers on top of each other. You can change their color and what they look like. You can make, the ones on top transparent. You can make the points larger, smaller. That's going to be in both software packages. So a lot of data formats you can open in between these different softwares. If one works better for you, based on your needs, certainly go that route. QGIS, if you're a Mac person or a Linux person, you can install on that. Or Esri's desktop software, it's Windows based. So that may take you one direction or another. There's also, if depending on your needs, and we'll talk about it coming up, if you don't want to install a desktop GIS and you can take advantage of WebGIS in the web browser, you have that option too. You don't necessarily need a desktop package if the web browser version offers you the functionality that you need. So that's something else to consider, because it's the web browser be on any device, which is helpful, or even mobile. So there's options there. If you want to go open source, if you want to go proprietary, if you want to go desktop, or you want to go online, you have several choices to go there. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the ArcGIS platform, since as students and faculty and staff here, we have access to that under the site license. And I want to make folks aware of the different applications that are out there and available to you, in addition to open source stuff. So on the platform, ArcGIS platform, ArcGIS Online, the portal is really the center of all the different apps that are out there. And we license ArcGIS Pro through the portal. So when you sign in, you're getting your license from the portal. They have groupings of apps out there for mobile data collection or analysis. One's for presenting information and doing web mapping. And it's this combination of, you have the desktop app that you can install, like ArcGIS Pro, or you could just use Map Viewer in a web browser online. So again, you don't have to install something on a computer, and you don't have to have a Windows computer on the ArcGIS platform unless you really need, the functionality that's in ArcGIS Pro, because there are things you will find in the desktop application that aren't available in the web application. So on mobile data collection, if in your research you're going to be going out in the field and collecting, these are some options for you if you're on the Esri platform. Not that you can certainly collect with other devices, and if you collect the data and get a comma separated values file, you can certainly bring it back and open it in ArcPro or QGIS or the web browser version. But if you're on the Esri's platform and you want to do mobile data collection, Field Maps is very popular. This picture here is from my phone, where it's a Field Maps application where you go out and collect points in either offline or online. If you're offline, when you come back, it'll sync up and transfer those features over to the online version. Survey is 123 is a more of a form-centric app, which is really like Qualtrics. If you use Qualtrics, it's not as map-centric as Field Maps is, but you could choose either one of those. And then Quick Capture is another one that has less functionality, but you can quickly grab a picture and collect observations in the field. Those are their three primary mobile data collection apps that you have access to as a student under the Esri license. And they install on, Android or iPhone, or those devices out there. So if you want to do mobile data collection, those are three to consider on the ArcGIS platform. Again, don't have to do it that way, but those are options that they have. If you want to do web mapping, so in popular web browser, Chrome or Firefox, Safari, they have two primary apps. Scene Viewer, if you're doing, a globe, kind of like a Google Earth thing, you can certainly use that through the web browser. Or you can use Map Viewer, which is their 2D version, which is, like a Google Maps interface. And it's, in a lot of ways, that's like ArcGIS Pro Lite. It doesn't have all the geoprocessing that's in ArcGIS Pro. A little simpler interface, not as many buttons to learn. If you can do things in the browser, this might be advantageous for you if you don't need all the functionality of Pro. So those are two primary web mapping applications. They have a lot for analysis, and ArcGIS Pro is that's their heavyweight flagship desktop application. And if you really need to do advanced geoprocessing, you're going to grind through a lot of data. If you're in Esri's environment, you're probably going to use Pro. But again, for a lot of people, it's too much. So you might not need it, but consider your options. They do have others outside of Pro, like City Engine, which actually is a Linux install available, but it's 3D design for kind of digital twins, cities, that type of thing. Drone to Map's another one. I mean, there's a lot of drone mapping software. They have one called Drone to Map that's available. There's an add-in for Excel under Office that if you want to, if you have a bunch of observations in there and have latitude, longitude, or addresses that you can embed a little map inside Excel if you're most comfortable working in Excel and you just need like a map under ArcGIS, you could do it through one of their add-ins. They have an application called Insights, which is a little more advanced statistical analysis that's available. Again, that's online. Uh, ArcGIS Notebooks is like Jupyter Notebooks if you want to do Python stuff and capture programming tasks in there. So you have that available for analysis through ArcGIS Online. They also have business analyst. If you're on the business side and you want to do kind of market analysis stuff, there's a specific business analyst app for analysis. And then ArcGIS Urban is another one for city planning. So there's a lot of options out there for doing analysis. And if you have a specific direction you're heading, one of those could come in handy for what you're doing. In terms of conveying information, you gather up all these data and you want to put together some type of presentation to share it. Story maps, Esri story maps are probably their most powerful application through ArcGIS Online. It gives you the ability to take text and pictures, and you can have a map in there and video and put it all together into a website and share your story, which you can certainly do in other applications too. If you're on the ArcGIS platform, story maps is the one you'll use to do that. Dashboards is another one, which kind of present different cards of tabular data or little meters if you're reading in real-time data. It's really kind of an infographic at a glance type of app. There's ArcGIS Hub. There's Instant Apps, which you have your data set, you make a map, and then you want to provide a little context around that map where you give some people really basic functionality like turn on and off layers or that type of thing. You can make your own application. Experience Builder is their advanced application for making your own web mapping application. So all these are available as a student. You can take advantage of, none of them or all of them or any number of them, but they are available under the higher education site license. And certainly I encourage you, if you have interest in them, go out, take a look, see if they're going to be helpful for the research you do, and yeah, take advantage of them as needed. If you are a developer or want to do more advanced programming stuff, they have some software development kits and application programming interfaces for automating some of that. If you want to create your own app for mobile devices and that type of thing. And that's another area to take a look at if you have interest. So those are theirs, App Studios, and their various software development kits. The API for Python is pretty widely used too, so that's another piece to consider if you're going to automate processes and that type of thing. Okay, that's kind of the offerings under Esri's platform for us in higher ed. I'll take a pause there and see, does anybody have any questions on any of those software that I touched on, or before I move on kind of to ArcGIS Online and talk about that? Everybody good? Everybody online good? Okay. Well, let's move over and talk a little bit about ArcGIS Online. And I know some of you have been in there. You may have used it in your classes. And for those who aren't familiar, let's talk a little bit about the basics here and let you know that it's available to you for your research. So ArcGIS Online is this cloud-based platform hosted by Esri, right? We don't host it here at the U of I. We just have access to it, and it allows you to create and manage data, through your web browser, really for a lot of these things that you're going to do. There's public accounts out there. You can certainly go create a public account, but you don't have access to as much functionality as you will if you sign in with your VandalNet ID to our portal for U of I. So you can certainly go out and do a public account, but you have the option to go to uidaho.maps.arcgis.com and sign in with your VandalNet ID to access this the teaching and scholarly research portal that will give you more functionality. So this is available at either, again, arcgis.com or uidaho.maps.arcgis.com, one of those two, either the public side or our organization side of things. Now, through all those apps we talked about, you can share, data through the various applications and ArcGIS Online itself, right? You're going to manage the data in ArcGIS Online. And if you go out and collect data in field maps and it stores those data in ArcGIS Online, right? You're signed in and you go out and collect some data and you can access that from Pro, right? So you're going to go between these applications and the data are going to reside in a place out there on Esri's cloud, and we can get to them from different locations. In the same way, if we make an edit in Pro, and then you go back out and look at it in field maps, you're going to see that change if you moved a point around or something. So we can also create a map in Pro and we can publish it to ArcGIS Online. So we can go, multiple directions here. And we can consume content in story maps that we created in Pro and push to ArcGIS Online. So these things are all talking together through the portal. If you're in Esri's platform and you want to, take advantage of that, and if it's helpful to you. So the content moves between those apps and the portal as needed for you. Now, you can share content with others through ArcGIS Online. By default, everything's private. So if I have a data set that I collect in field maps and I collect a bunch of points and those data are stored in ArcGIS Online, I'm the only person that can see them, right? And I have to choose to share those more broadly. And right now in ArcGIS Online, you have the ability to share those beyond, just the private setting in 3 ways. You have the ability to create a group, and you can add members to that group who could see that data set. So you could create a group, you're the owner, you add someone else from the organization, you share a data set with them and they can see it. Or you could you could jointly edit it if you wanted to. You can also share it across the whole organization. In our case, the University of Idaho. So anyone who has a VandalNet ID can see it if you share it at the organizational level. And then you can also share it publicly or anonymously. So if you enable that, then anybody can get to, if they go to arcgis.com and just search it as a public user, they'll find your feature layer or your web map or your web mapping application. So you control the sharing. And then know too, since it's a global platform, you could share it with people from other organizations if you wanted to, Boise State, LCSC, ISU, WSU. If they have an account at another institution or agency, Department of Water Resources, Fish and Game, something like that. A lot of state agencies, local governments use the ArcGIS platform. So you can go sharing just beyond our organization if you wanted to add somebody to your group that you could let them view, the data you're collecting, but not have it accessible to everybody. So those are the levels of sharing right now in ArcGIS Online. One thing to note, right now you have to create a group to share it with somebody else. It's not like you're in Google Drive and you can just, or OneDrive, and you can just choose to share one file with somebody else. So conceptually, it's a little different. You have to create a group and add a member to that group to share, as opposed to say, oh, I just want to share this layer with one person. There's a lot of discussion on, potentially that coming about. But right now, this idea of a group and adding people to a group is how you share content securely and privately beyond just yourself. So that's sharing content out there. Um, let's talk a little bit about support. The folks who are in this room here in the library on the first floor, folks who are online, if you're in Moscow, you can certainly always come by the map room on the first floor of the library, which is where the data hub is here, room 107. It's a space we have set up to get together and discuss data, GIS data or other types of data, analysis, visualization, Python stuff. If you want to come over, we're in this space from 12 to 3 Monday through Fridays. So one of our librarians, myself, Norm, who's at the desk there, Jeremy Kenyon or Seth Thompson, are in here and available for trying to help you out if you have interest. If you're on remote, there's a chat, or just hit us an email or phone call and you want to schedule time to, talk about some aspect of data. We're happy to do that. And that's kind of one of your first levels of support to get help with GIS if you should need it. So we're here 12 to 3, or any of the virtual options for folks. If online, if you're not in Moscow, or even if you are in Moscow and just want to hit us up virtually, yeah, please feel free to contact us to talk more about that. Beyond just us, if you're on the Esri side, or, on any of the open source software, there's all sorts of platforms out there to get help. On the Esri side, they have a lot of links under the resources, videos, learning opportunities, getting started with story maps or something to that, or how to plan your story map, or, any of those types of things are available to you just through browsing the web or any of their mapping products pages that are out there. We also have access to Esri training as students here at the University of Idaho. These are self-paced online classes. So if you go to esri.com/training and you sign in with your VandalNet ID, you can browse their resources that are out there. Some of them are 10-minute introductions, and some of them are more involved learning plans, like you want to dig deeper into ArcGIS Pro. Esri.com/training is a good place to take a look and see what they have out there and available. A lot of their stuff is available, just anonymously, but signing in on some of them, you get access to ones that aren't just available anonymously. So that can be helpful. They have a course catalog you can look through. And, a lot of times you can limit it by the application. You can apply facets like the application and narrow it down. The only thing we don't have access to for no cost is instructor-led training, which is things they do at other locations. So if you see that, unless you want to go to Olympia or some other place, or probably online now, that would be the only thing that would be listed there that would be a cost. But if you go to esri.com/training, just sign in with your VandalNet ID on your organizational URL and take advantage of those resources too, because there's a lot of modules out there to help you get started if you're just wanting to learn a little bit about some application or get a deeper dive into a specific piece of software. If you do get stuck on something and we can't help you, we can, if we both knocking our heads against the wall, or we think we've run into something pretty difficult, we do have the ability to contact Esri Tech Support and get in touch with their folks who hopefully can solve those issues. We certainly run into buggy stuff sometimes, or things we can't work around. So a couple of us can submit tickets on your behalf. Not just everybody. A student can't just submit a ticket under our organization the way it's structured. We have a couple of people who can submit tickets on your behalf to get help from support staff at Esri. One other opportunity for support, if you want to learn more, we do host GIS Day each year at the University of Idaho. Wednesday, November 19th this year. It's always the third Wednesday of November. We'll be over in the iSub and online. Gives you an opportunity to see what kind of research folks are doing out there across the UI, and we get participation from some of the professionals in the area, in the region. So it's a good mix of people. So consider save the date on that and come out and enjoy that event. Let's spend a little time looking at the apps here. And for folks who want to sign into ArcGIS Online, we can certainly do that. And I'll give you a glimpse into navigating around there and what we can do, just so you have a launching point to use that resource if you want. Before I get out of the slideshow, and we'll share these slides, I think, or the recording with folks out there who've registered. And you get a list of all the previous workshops and other upcoming library workshops that are going on now through November on these slides. So let's stop here on this share, and I'm going to go over to my desktop, and we'll look at some of these apps, the desktop apps and then the online apps. Before I do that, any questions on any of the learning resources, or anybody have any yeah, just questions on that area? We all good? Okay. Let me stop sharing there. And I'm gonna go over and let me close. Hang on a second. Let me go here, close this. Good. And let me just share my desktop here. Okay, online, can you guys see my desktop that shows ArcGIS Pro right now and QGIS? Okay. So this thing out of the way. So QGIS, you'll see here is a pretty involved app too. A lot of buttons, right? A lot of menus. But you're going to find a similar, somewhat similar interface in ArcGIS Pro, which is going to have a lot of functionality and a lot of options too. In QGIS, you have the ability to add local data sets, right, off your computer, and there's the ability to add, stream layers in too, right? So we have those acronyms, like I mentioned, WMS, Web Mapping Service. It's open platform out there, or bring in, OpenStreetMap or something like that for your base layer. So we can stream data in, and we can add local data sets. So if I went to my local drive, we can go into this temporary, and I've just got a shapefile in here, and we can add state boundaries in here. And then we've got our layers down here, that terminology. We can stack ones on top of the others, and we can begin to change the symbology here, right? Not everything has to be orange. We can change the outline. We can add labels. So we can make our map in that way. And then you can start to perform analysis within QGIS there. And between QGIS and Pro, some of the workflows are slightly different. Some of the terms used are slightly different. Basically, the concepts are going to be the same, vector data, raster data, what you're going to do. So certainly if you want to use QGIS, that's a good option to go on the open source side. ArcGIS Pro looks like this. Again, you have a big map in the middle. Your layers are over here. They have a slightly different presentation style. We could add our same data set that we had over there if we connected to a folder like ctemp again. In this case, if I go over here to GIS data and get that same shapefile, so now we're in a different piece of, different piece of software. I gotta add that folder. Can't see it. Okay, and then I grab my shapefile and we want to view those data. So we have them over here in Pro the same way, just comes in a slightly different color. But again, we can change the color and do all the symbology and do the analysis in much the same way. And we have access in Pro to all the analysis tools in their toolbox, and there's a whole bunch in here, right? It's big and heavy application. And when we're signed into this, the first time you launch ArcGIS Pro, you'll sign in with your VandalNet ID, like you see I'm signed in up here as Bruce Godfrey, University of Idaho. And in ArcGIS Pro, in the catalog here, under the project, these folders are all our local data, right? And then we can also get data from the portal. So I'm connected to our research and teaching portal here, and it has all these data sets that I've made available up there. Or we can search ones that people shared across the organization or other organizations, right? So under the portal tab, we're going to stream data in, and under that project tab, we're getting local data. And just like in QGIS, you can get to your local drives, or you can bring in like OpenStreetMap and you can stream it in, that type of thing. So they're organized and presented slightly different, but you have the ability to do similar tasks between the web service formats and the local file formats. Now for ArcGIS Online, if you go to uidaho.maps.arcgis.com and you click on the sign in button in the upper right, that gives you the ability to sign into the organization using your VandalNet ID. And so where it says, click here to sign in using your VandalNet ID, you click on that and it should take you to the single sign-on page for the university and you sign in. I'm going to use just a demo account here real quick. For purposes of this presentation. But click on the blue button and sign in, and you should be good to go. And we'll come to the same presentation when we come into ArcGIS Online. So the first page you'll land on is just the organization tab. That's the default. It'll tell you a little bit about us. It'll tell you, get in touch with me if you have a problem there. It'll show you some of the newest members and some of the latest content that's been shared, at least at the organization level, right? These are just showing ones that people have shared either organizationally or anonymously. So up in the upper right, you have the ability to control your profile and your settings, like you do in most applications, where you have some control over, if you want to add a bio or something, you can certainly do that. You also have this checkerboard that's available that shows you a lot of those apps that you have access to that we talked about, like Story Maps is in here, or insights, or business analyst or dashboards. So you have the ability to get to them from this little picker right here for a lot of them. So you could take advantage of that. And then across the top, you have a number of menus here, some of which you'll use more often than others, probably. Home is just as it implies the home page. The gallery is a list of resources that the library shared across the organization for either data sets that we purchase and make available, like licensed imagery for some of the research areas, like the experimental forest or Taylor Wilderness Station, that type of thing, or other data sets that folks have deposited from their research that they've made available. So you're certainly welcome. You can explore the gallery and look at a lot of those that are available out there. Map and scene are the two that I mentioned in the presentation. So map viewer for doing 2D mapping, scene viewer for doing 3D mapping, notebooks if you want to do notebooks in ArcGIS Online for Python, a lot of scripting or other types of scripting, you can do that. And then two, you'll spend a lot of time in if you're going to manage data up here and if you're going to share data. So groups is where you create your groups if you're going to share data with a select set of people. And it's a pretty straightforward presentation. You have several options that you can choose when you create a new group. So the idea, create a group, add members, have a friendly title, add a little summary for the group, that type of thing. And under content is where you manage your content, right? So this is somewhat similar to kind of like a Windows Explorer thing. You can create a folder down here to organize your data. So if I wanted to create a new folder, maybe it's for a research project or maybe it's for a class. And you have the ability to organize your data. You can only create one level right now in terms of the hierarchy. You can't create subfolders under here at this time in ArcGIS Online. But it helps organize your content if you have it for a specific class or for specific research project. And then we have the ability up here to create some type of new item. We can create a new app if we wanted to. Again, here's these apps that we talked about, like story maps or dashboards. So we don't have to get into it through that picker, but we could do it here if you wanted to do one of these types of popular apps. We can also create a new item if you want to create a new feature layer, like we talked about for vector data sets, or if you want to create an imagery layer, which is a raster layer, right? So there's different ways to go about doing that. If you want to create a new application here, you could do that or link to some other web service out there. We can also just, popular data formats, like it says, we can drag and drop them in here from our desktop too, which I'll do with an example real quick for one of those local data sets. So if I go to my local drive and I go back to my GIS data. And so if you have a comma separated values file or whoops, I'm in the wrong place. Hold on a second. I didn't put it down here. Sorry. Bear with me for just a second while I get over here. So I got a data set in here that's just one of those GeoJSON formats. And we can just, if you had a CSV like I did there, we should be able to just drag it into the window here. And since it recognizes that as a really popular format, we can add that and create a new hosted layer, which is going to create a map layer of those data. You could give it a name here, where you want to store it. I'm going to store it in the file demo. This would be a more friendly title, fire stations for Idaho or something. We can add tabs that facilitate discovery for searching. We can create a summary, which is a brief description of it. So if I save this data set now, it should take that GeoJSON file off my computer, and it's going to add it to ArcGIS Online and create this new item in ArcGIS Online here. And so we have a new feature layer, and this is the item page for that feature layer. And so it uploaded it and created this new layer. And it recognizes the geographic location since it's in a GeoJSON format. But what you'll end up seeing in your content is these are two new items in there. It's the original file you uploaded, and then this feature layer that's available. So we have a new data layer in ArcGIS Online now. And ideally, you would describe this well, right? You would, I mean, if you're going to share it with someone, certainly add some information in here about it. And you have the ability to look at the tabular data that's behind it just from the item page. So you'll see there's some records in here with addresses and zip codes. And so it gives you phone numbers and that type of thing. We can click on the visualization tab and take a look at those data. You can get usage statistics if you want to see how many times people have looked at it if you've shared it. And then there's some options on the settings that you can make some changes there to those data, like prevent it from accidentally being deleted or something like that. You can protect it a little more. If you want to enable editing on it, you can do it in here when you get into the settings. So on this items page, you have a lot of control over the documentation, how it's presented, and the functionality of that layer. And we can open and write up in Map Viewer from here too, or we could go to Map Viewer and search for it, but I'll open it up here. So right now we have one data layer that we created in ArcGIS Online, and we could get to it from Field Maps or some other application. We can get to it from ArcGIS Pro now if we wanted to, since this layer is hosted in ArcGIS Online. And you can see the points show up here. And in Map Viewer here, this is, a limited set of functionality that ArcGIS Pro has, but we can change the symbology and the labeling and all that information, on this web map. And we can also add data from different locations here. I can add it just from my content. I can add it from, groups that have shared data with me. I can add it from all across our organization. I can add it from all of ArcGIS Online, or I can actually add it from a resource called the Living Atlas, which is items that Esri curates out there. So if you wanted like USA states or something, if you wanted state boundaries, for example, to show up on here like we had before, and we want to stream them in, but we don't have them on our desktop, we can go out and add that layer in here, and you get those state boundaries, right? And now you have a web map here that has, those two layers in there. And we could filter out all the states except for Idaho and, do a lot of that type of, visualization work. There's also the ability in here to do some analysis within ArcGIS Online under this analysis tab. But I want to mention that you have this data layer and you now have this web map, and you want to, if you want to retain that, this web map is a different item now, right? So we would save this as a stations web map. I spelled it incorrectly, but we have a new web map that'll retain those settings that we can come back in, open up, right? Just like you would in ArcGIS Pro, where you present it, or in QGIS. And if you go back to your content now, you'll notice that we have the data layer, right? as a service, we also actually have it as the GeoJSON format. And this web map that's in here. So those are two different items in ArcGIS Online, and we would describe the web map differently. It has an item page too, where the web map might contain a bunch of layers in there, and you might describe that differently, and you can have different settings available on the web map. And then we also have the ability, if you want to, you could create an application, that holds the web map. So the web map holds the data layer, and the application holds the web map that holds the data layer. And the application, could be a little fancier presentation with more buttons on it than just the web map. And so you have different levels of items that you can create in here and share and document. And again, when it's up here in ArcGIS Online, we can get to it from, ArcPro or, Story Maps or the mobile applications. So there is a way to get to vector data in ArcGIS Online from QGIS, but it's not quite as easy as it is in ArcGIS Pro. As you might imagine, proprietary software versus open source can be a challenge sometimes between sharing. So I know we're up against the end of the hour. Before I wrap up, does anyone online or in the room have any questions about what we covered? And certainly, if you do and don't want to get into them now, come see us at the Data Hub or contact us after. But if anybody has something, I'm happy to try to answer it here. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. So I was wondering, is there a way we could have like access to the data set after now to like practice and all?
Access to data. So the question is about access to data sets for practicing. Yeah, through ArcGIS Online, if you sign in, there's going to be a lot of public data out there that you can get to. And if you had specific data sets, there's a lot available out there that you can download freely and practice with. Or like that GeoJSON file, I'm happy to share if you just want to try that out and drag it, or any comma separated values file that has some location information is going to play well if you have an address or latitude, longitude in it. Yeah, so there's a lot of freely available data for practicing. Yeah, and a lot of the tutorials have data, they come with data sets in them too. Thank you.
This video, can we like access it?
The video, the presentation, yeah. So Han-Wen, that will be shared with folks after, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So the question is about the video and the slides, and they'll be shared with folks who registered for the session. And certainly, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or come see us in the Data Hub. Yeah, hope this was helpful for people who have some GIS knowledge or who didn't have any. And by all means, take advantage of Esri's offerings because there's a lot out there. And happy GISing. Thank you, guys.